Today's episode is brought to you by Real Estate Radio Experts. Radio, if you guys don't know, radio is the one thing, the one common thread that all top producing agents have in common. Guess what? It's not as expensive as you might think. I know radio sounds fancy, TV sounds fancy, but you wouldn't believe the kind of look. I'll tell you this: we're buying spots in a Charleston, for example, for $40 a spot. Boom. We can get TV spots, oddly enough, it's crazy. I don't even want literally for less than $10 an episode or 60-second produced spot on TV. Now, this is not every market, but we can get you on the TV. So listen, if you want to level up and get exclusive access to, our mastermind groups, our referral network, go to Real Estate Radio Experts, fill out the Getting Started page, or just send me an email. And look, here's the other thing. Maybe you don't think you're ready for radio yet. But you know somebody that is? For my listeners, for you guys, I'm offering a $500 referral bonus. You introduce me, I sign them up, I send you $500 cash. And I'm sending out a video right now to my list, kind of explaining some of that stuff. So, that's it. Now look, the other piece that I want to talk about, there's a company that I just met. It's a home warranty company. And, I spent quite a bit of time with these guys, and for our people, what they're doing, and I got to figure out exactly how I'm working with them. But they will give, if you use them and sell their $300, $500 home warranty deals, they will give you money towards your marketing, your monthly marketing. And I was blown away when I started doing the numbers. Now there's some RESPA regulations, and I can't tell you guys exactly how much per transaction because it doesn't work like that, so they say. But there's a little bit of a matrix. So if you're interested in adding home warranties, send me an email, and I'll tell you kind of how the program works, and we'll see if we can get it started there. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first million in real estate. Yeah. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
All right, that is it. Now, today's episode is pretty good, man. It's actually, I've been saving this one. I did this one a while back. We go over an open house strategy. Now, a lot of times people say, oh, this is a strategy for this, this is a strategy for that. This is a point-by-point strategy, point by point, day by day. So for this one, you're two things. You're going to want to probably listen to it twice, and you need a pen and paper. You are 100%, I guarantee you're going to want to take notes on this one. This is something that you're going to want to start to implement into your business. And I hope you do. And when you do, and it starts working, and you start getting deals and, buyers and sellers and all that stuff, I want you to send me an email and let me know how it works. This is one of the episodes, really. This is some of the stuff that should be really part of our premium content, but it's not. You guys get it for free. So, and that may not be the case later. I'm thinking about there's lots of stuff I've been thinking of doing, guys. I'm thinking about creating a referral network. Boom. Whatever. I won't get into it. Let's get to the episode. Today on the show, I'm really excited. As you guys know, our new approach lately is taking this geographic approach, and we want to talk with people that hopefully represent a market similar to yours. We want to find out what's working for these folks. Today's guest is in Portland, Oregon. He has a team of 9 people. We'll do 240 deals this year. Total volume about $85 million, and aiming towards that 100. And he does about $2 million in GCI. So this guy's got a really, really lean ship that he runs. I am thrilled to welcome Chris Suarez. Hey, Chris, thanks for taking the time out today.
Hey, no problem. My pleasure.
So listen, I've given the audience a brief overview of just nuts and bolts overview of what your business looks like. But before we dig into your business, I want to know a little bit about who Chris is. I want the man behind the machine. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into what you're doing.
Awesome. So yeah, been at the real estate game for about 10 years. Interesting. I was born and raised in New York, actually. So born and raised in New York, got my real estate license in New York, sold in Westchester County, and then made the cross-country trek to Oregon. What's interesting about that is I built a business in New York, ended up in Eugene, Oregon, built a business there, and then moved again to Portland. So I've lived in Portland for about 7 years now, been selling in the city for I'm heading to my 5th year. So it's been a quick growth path in those 5 years. And really, I think that's been part of the success story, is understanding that, hey, real estate should be run like a business. And when you have to start over multiple times, or you choose to start over multiple times, you sort of get the business part of real estate down, and get away from this thought that you have to have been born and raised in a marketplace, or have been selling for 20 years and have a huge database of past clients. So really, it's been a systematic path of just business growth, but that's really me. Thought I was going to be an attorney. Went to really through pre-law in New York, and ended up interning with some real estate attorneys, and just fell into real estate by somewhat of an accident. And it's been an awesome ride throughout.
The unsuspecting realtor. I've heard that story before, but so you went through pre-law. What was, you said you fell into real estate. What does that mean to you?
Well, so quite honestly, when I was looking for an internship while I was in school, I wanted to get into intellectual property, and the only internship available was with a real estate attorney, which I thought was the most boring aspect of the law. So in New York, it's an attorney state. So a bar association's real strong. It's an attorney contract, not a broker contract. Wound up showing up to closing after closing after closing in Westchester County and Manhattan and different boroughs. And what was interesting to me was I found that I was not in the right place on the side of the table. I'd go to the closings. I was representing the attorney, and where the relationship was, or where the smiles were, was with the buyer and their agent, and the seller and their agent, because in New York everyone's around the same table. And so as I would go to these closings, right, time and time again, I heard agents say, "Hey, you should get your real estate license. You'd be great in real estate. You'd be great in real estate." And although I had no interest, I just started looking at the industry I was heading down in the legal field and saying, "That's not really me." And thought, well, why don't I go ahead and get my real estate license? And that's how it really started in Westchester.
You know, you had to have felt, Chris. I mean, I shouldn't put thoughts or words in your mouth, but you obviously are a smart guy, and you're sitting down at the closing table here. Did you ever feel like, oh man, I can kill this? I'm so much smarter than these guys. Like you had to. That's got to be a common theme for you.
I think for me it was more about wanting to make sure I was loving what I did. And honestly, and again, it could be just the environment that I was in, but in the industry or that field that I was heading down, I didn't see that. I didn't see any passion behind representing clients. I mean, obviously, right, you're representing a real estate transaction, and maybe I was right, it's the most boring aspect of the law. But what I did see was a lot of passion behind representing the buyer and the seller in the real estate transaction. And I'll tell you, part of it absolutely was financial, right? So in that environment, I was the one cutting the checks and writing the checks and sliding the checks across the table, and they were clearly going in the wrong direction. So the attorneys were making percentages of what the agents were making, and I thought, what am I doing wrong? Like, I don't love what I'm doing, and it wasn't financially rewarding. So just things weren't lining up, and I told myself, I love the business, and you'll hear this throughout probably the interview, but I love the business end or aspect of the real estate industry, or just any industry in general. And I didn't see that in the legal field, and I saw that in the real estate industry, plus people were passionate, and plus people were making money. So you combine those three, and it was just a natural progression.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I do want to. I want to spend definitely some time on that business end of it, and I guess that I think if I think about being a lawyer, an attorney, or whatever, that's all about billable hours, right? Billable hours, and with real estate, it's about doing deals. And I would imagine from an hour perspective that if you can build a business and have a marketing plan and get leads and your dollar per hour earnings are much higher in real estate than being in law and spending $150,000 on your education.
And that was it, right? So I realized that I was only going to be as good as the hours that I had to work in that industry. And there's different ways to approach it, and people have done phenomenal in that industry. But for me, it just wasn't lining up. And so it was getting into something that was entrepreneurial, but then could roll into being purposeful while having a business plan attached to it and a goal. So.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the business piece of it because as you're training as an attorney, you didn't get any training on how to build a business, and if we look at your career, you've done it 3 times in completely different geographic markets, right? New York, Eugene, and now Portland. Where did you get the business foundation that Chris, that you've done this 3 times now? Where did you learn that?
Through failing forward.
Got it.
Really, it as I look at each city, I've gotten progressively better. I believe in coaching as well. So getting connected with the right coach for the person is important to me. And I read a real estate book that clearly millions have read because millions of copies have been sold, but MREA, right, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And with that, after reading that, I think I was living in Eugene when I read that for the first time, and I thought, man, this is a really, really simple business. It's not easy, right? It's hard work, but it's simple. Yeah. So as long as we commit to certain activities and have a growth mindset, this overwhelming mindset of just growth, right? Every week, every month, every year, then the business will grow. And so that was a key for me. And then just what's interesting is just I make it a commitment to myself to every single month read a business book. So I live in that genre, and whether it's a case study of another company, and I love researching companies outside of our industry. I think sometimes real estate agents can get so focused on their own industry that they don't look around themselves and see what people are doing to be successful in other industries and other businesses. And right, success leaves clues. So for me, it's being a perpetual student of business. And you're right. I didn't learn that in school, but I feel like I've gotten my MBA through just being a solid reader and a student of just business. Yeah,
absolutely. Being learning based. And let me ask you this, Chris, because you're using certain terms that most real estate agents, and I can tell you're well read. How old are you?
I just turned 35.
Okay, so you're at the end. So you're a millennial. You are at the tail end of it.
Yes.
But you're a millennial. Okay. So and the reason why you said failing forward, you're talking about passion, and trying to match up passion with work is very much a millennial thing. So thanks for letting us know that. Now, so. What did you do? So you said you failed forward. You got progressively better. If we look at your what you did in New York as opposed to what you did, because look, you've been in Portland for 5 years. You have a crazy business for a 35-year-old guy that's been in a market that's not $85 million, 250 transactions. What are some of the things that you did in Portland that you failed forward to be able to grow this fantastic business in Portland in just 5 years?
I think it comes down to a few things. One is understanding what business I'm in. I learned how to work with a buyer and how to work with a seller early on in my career, and initially that's what I did. I got focused on working with buyers and working with sellers, and I did that well. But again, I'm only as good as the last buyer or the last seller that I work with. So, and I was actually that guy that could always create new business. And one day I realized that I wasn't creating business from the past and past relationships. So as I decided to move again and start over in Portland, and when I moved to Portland, I knew one person in the city, so I didn't have a base. But what I told myself was I was going to do it right, and got really clear about the fact that I was in a database business, right? I'm in a relationship-based database business, and ultimately the value of my business was going to be based on how wide that database was and how deep it was. So how many people were in it, and how deep of a relationship did I develop or create or message my way into with those people. So everything then that I did was with this mindset that I was building a database. And I get it. We hear it a lot. Did I have one in New York? Sure. Yet I didn't truly come to grips with the fact that that was going to be the basis of my entire business moving forward.
That is, I think people do hear it. Number one, I don't think people hear it enough. And number two, I don't think that the way you just articulated that, Chris, is amazing. Now that is your business. So what did you do? I want to talk about how you built your list, how you built your database, because I can tell you, and this is, this for a fact, most agents are terrible about going out and being deliberate about building a database. How did you knew one person? How did you get to 1,000?
Yep. So for me, I think most agents get really distracted and try to do too many things. So they might say, yeah, I'm going to build a database. And then they list out the 5 things that they're going to do, or the 5 ways they're going to build it. For me, I said, I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to perfect it, and I'm going to have a steady stream of people that I have not met before, don't know me. I'm going to meet them. I'm going to get them in the database, and then I'll work on growing that or developing it or going deep, right? So first it was going wide. I needed people because I didn't know anybody. And quite simply, the easiest way to do that for me was actually open houses. And it seems like an old traditional strategy, but to this day, right, 5 years later, it is one of the largest sources of business. And more importantly, whether they close today or not, it's one of the largest sources of our database growth. So that first year in Portland, I was doing open houses probably 5 or 6 days a week.
Wow.
And what's interesting about that is, I sit with agents now today and talk to them about it. It's like, well, why would you do that? And what's interesting is, if I'm in a situation, and I was in a situation where I needed to make money when I moved to the city, I could go out and get a 9-to-5 job, right, and get paid $12, $15, $17 an hour, or whatever it ends up to be, and have to show up 9 to 5. Real estate agents, typically, they'll show up to their office when they want, when they feel like it, and aren't real purposeful about the time, when in reality, I could do an hour of prep, 2 hours of presentation, and an hour of post-prep, right, leading up to that open house. So really 4 hours per open house, and that's half a day. I still have 4 hours of working time left, and consistently, if I did that open house every single day, I knew that someone was going to get added to the database. And big picture, I was also building a brand, right? Mm-hmm. So with that, as long as the strategies and there's a system and a process for those open houses, I'm connecting with people that don't know me. I'm actually putting people in the database, and I'm getting people familiar with me, even if they're just driving by and seeing signs.
Right.
So for me, that was great. How do I take this one strategy, continue to pump people into the database, and I was told early on that any lead generation source should be able to grow to about 20 million in volume. And honestly, as we went down year by year for growth, my goal was once I hit 20 million, I'd look at the second lead gen source, build that out, get that to 20 million, add it, and move on. And so that has been my strategy. How do you build a business? My goal is to get to 100 million, which hasn't been done in Portland that I know of. So it's really, to me, I need 5 lead gen sources, right? 5 legs to a stool. And if each one is bringing about 20 million in volume, strategically, I can get to 100 million fairly quickly.
That is That's freaking good, Chris. I mean, I don't think, here's the thing. I think that I love the story of it, and I know that you've made it work. The vast majority of people would not call open houses a strategy. And I don't, most people would say, there's no way that channel, the open house channel, will get you 20 million. So you did open houses 5 days a week. You talked about prep, doing it, and then post prep. What is your strategy or your tactical thing? How do you do open houses and to be this successful with them?
So it's a week-long process for me. So yes, the event, right? We present 2 hours in that open house. I liken it to sports, right? We show up, especially football. They show up and they perform for a couple hours. In fact, they're probably on the field for what? I think on average 18 to 21 minutes, per player. But they have a week of prep before. So we all think about the presentation. We all think about the time at the open, but everything leading up to it and following it sort of just falls away. So here's what we do. I mean, ultimately, our open houses ideally get chosen a week in advance. Sometimes that doesn't happen, right, because the market changes and the house sells. But for the most part, 75 to 80% of our open houses get played out this way. A week in advance, the open house gets chosen. We immediately set up a digital folder. We operate off of mobile devices, a tablet. So we set up a digital folder that is shared with the team. In that digital folder immediately goes a few things. One, it goes a flyer for the property, and I'll explain why that happens later, but there's a flyer for the property that you're going to hold open. There are comps for the property that you're going to hold open. And there's what I call a total market overview. So just imagine market stats in that folder for the neighborhood around that home. And then that same day goes a call list into that folder. We call a title company, right, or you can call a third-party provider, and we pull in, we try to get about 100 phone numbers around that house. So everything gets set up day one for that one home or that address. Now, when I was starting out, I didn't have listings. They weren't my listings, and I would borrow them, right? I'd find someone in my office that had an open or a listing, preferably vacant, right? So I didn't have to deal with people and schedule, and I would just set that up. I'd set that folder up. Day two, an invitation to that open house goes out. It goes out to owner-occupieds. My goal was not to connect with buyers. I believe that if you have listings, the buyers will show up. So my open houses strategically are geared towards generating sellers, which is going to be neighborhood, right? People that live in the neighborhood or are driving by. So we send out an invitation, depending on the neighborhood, anywhere between 50 and 100 invitations, just a postcard, right, announcing the open that's going to happen. We send that out on day 2, so it lands on day 4 or 5, which is about the day or 2 days before the open house. So now they're getting a call, they're getting a postcard. A sign goes in the yard on day 3. So that's 4 days before it's open, and it'll say it's open on Saturday, or it's open on Sunday, it's open on Friday, whatever day of the week it is and the time that it's going to be open, we put a sign in the yard. What's interesting about that is I get more sign calls off of my open signs than I do from my yard signs. So they'll call and be like, hey, it's open, on Tuesday, can we see it? Or they'll call for information off the open. But the sign goes up, and I want more important, I want neighbors that are driving to and from work or to and from shopping or to and from schools seeing that every day for about 4 days. So in their mind, they want to stop by. So we have phone calls being made. We have print being sent. We have a sign going up. So in my mind, that's about 3 touches so far. The 4th touch before every open is we door knock. We door knock just about the 4 blocks around that home. So not a ton, and that's just to get out there, knock on some doors, hopefully talk face-to-face. If not, leave some stats and then invitation to the open. It's the same card that they got in the mail, hopefully. So that's the 4th touch. I hope that the 5th touch is our directionals the day of the open. We put about 10 directionals or 10 open house signs. We call them directionals, but anywhere from 7 to 10 depending on the neighborhood. I hope the 6th touch is them showing up and then talking to us. Now, when we show up to the event, and we call it an event, but when we show up to the open house, our mindset and strategy is one thing. get their name, get their contact information. So we don't use print. So what I saw happening is, right, we print out some flyers, people take the flyer, they walk around the house, they leave the house, and you don't know who they are, they don't really know who you are, they don't care. So my goal is to ask the right questions, to get them to be willing to give you something. And in order for someone to give you something, I believe you have to give them something of value. So I have a few things of value. I have statistics for the neighborhood, I have information about the house that they're in, and I have comps. And so what I do, when the first person, right, opens up the door, walks in, I use one question. This is a question that every one of my agents use. And it put simply, we ask them, are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Really, really simple question. What that does for us is it immediately lets us know, are we talking to a future buyer or future seller? And then we're able to script our way through a buyer or a seller. But for me, that tells me who they are and what would be valuable to them. So if it's a seller, now I know I'm going to try to get them some market statistics and find out if they're interested in finding the value of their home. If it's a buyer, I'm going to go down a different path. But see, I don't have a flyer. So my second question is, would you like a flyer on the home? And if they say yes, which typically they do, I just straight up ask, what's your email address so I can email it to you now? And so I have that on my iPad right there. They can see it, and I can email it directly out of our digital folder to them. And now I have contact information. If they say no, that's okay. Great. I'm gonna let them begin taking their tour, and I'm going to ask them about 2 or 3 other questions to try to get contact information. Right? I have comps. So if they're buyers and they're looking for comps or other homes that are available that they can drive by, great. If it's a seller and they want market stats for the neighborhood, most sellers will say yes. I can email it directly to them. So what happens is I have about 2 or 3 ways to get their contact information, and that's the whole point of our open houses. It's to get contact information. Now, there's always going to be some people that don't want to give it, and the last strategy I use, especially for seller, and that's who I'm targeting, as I mentioned, it's just getting their last name. So most people will give me their last name. If I know that they live in the neighborhood because I asked that question, and I know that they're an owner in the neighborhood, as long as I have their last name, I won't push them for their contact information because I'll go back right after the open house. I'll pull up their last name. I'll do a property search, and I'll know their address. And then after the open house, everybody gets, right, if they get their email or phone, we call or email them thanking them for coming, seeing if we can help with anything. Or if it was a neighbor and we didn't get their contact information, we mail them a thank you card, thanking them for coming to the open, and also mail them some statistics about the neighborhood, and then put them on a plan where every month they're getting something about their neighborhood statistically. So for me, I actually have begun to build, right, this massive database of, in my mind, future sellers. And it may be this year, it may be 3 years from now, it may be 10 years. I don't really care because I plan on being in business up until the point in time that they want to sell their home. So that is, from our perspective, what I mean by creating an open house strategy, as opposed to just showing. And I did those right the other way for years. Show up once in a while, no one shows up, no one comes. It's a huge mindset shift for sure.
That is that. I was literally scribbling down. I took like a page and a half of notes from you. That is phenomenally actionable advice. And look, everybody out in the audience, I know you're going to want all this stuff. So it's okay if you're driving or walking the dog. We'll have it all in the show notes at superagentslive.com. So, Chris, that really, so you kind of pioneered this for yourself. You did this, like you created this. I've never heard this detailed of a strategy on open houses from anybody.
Well, I mean, so, and sometimes it's environment that pushes you to, right? Or strategy that pushes you to. I didn't know anybody in Portland. So I look at, and this came from MRA as well, I looked at, I need to move have-not mets into mets. And how do I do that? For me, I'm not going to be the guy that picks up the phone and calls 100 people a day. It's just not me, and that's okay. I have to build a database another way. And that's why I believe it. Do I believe in being uncomfortable in business? Sure. But I also believe in getting behind a strategy that you can commit to. on paper and mentally, and then just executing. And so, the phrase I use is lead generation levers. We all need to know what is a lead generation lever that we can stand on or we can pump and we can get, right? If we continue with that lead generation lever pushing up and down and pushing up and down and pushing up and down, it's going to pump out results at the other end. And I don't get caught up on the results. I just know and have faith that the activity will lead to the result. And then what's interesting about that is as you get deeper and deeper into one strategy and you get ultra just passionate about perfecting a strategy, it's funny how many other things will sort of spawn off of it or grow off of it. I mean, around open houses, then door knocking can become bigger and bigger and bigger. Some agents, right, they have door knocking as $20 million strategy.
Oh, yeah.
Farming sort of gets layered into our open houses. And then we got ultra focused on, okay, which neighborhoods are we going to do open houses? What price points are we going to do open houses in? And that it really was the beginning and the base of our business. And I love that because I didn't have money when I started selling real estate in Portland. I didn't have this, right? I'm not independently wealthy. I didn't have a big budget to grow a big business. You can throw money at this business fairly easily, but I believe that you can also create it from nothing, which is what I did with open houses.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. I want to ask you about how you choose when you had to borrow listings for open houses. I want to know how you went through that process of choosing the right one. But before we get there, here's when you were talking about. Well, you know what? Answer that, and then I want to run something by you. I want to get your opinion on it. So when you had to borrow your listings, what was the process that you went through to say, okay, to identify like this is a great listing, this is the one I should spend my week on?
Great question, and we did care. So I looked for a few things because remember it was midweek, middle of the day. So I would look for traffic patterns. So I would pick listings that were no more than typically 3 signs. I only needed 2 or 3 directional signs to get to the house because I know people get, right, we all have small attention spans or short attention spans. So I would look for homes that sat fairly close to an artillery road. And then I would look for times and days where I thought there would be better traffic. So, for instance, I'd look for office parks, and I would do an open from 11 to 1. Why? Because there's going to be a lot of people probably leaving their office, going to lunch. I would look at, okay, what big employers, where are they, and where's the shopping or the lunch places, and I would actually try to get in between those two strategically during that time. I would do earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon around school pickup and drop off, and then I would pick a home that was by a school. Why? Because these were potential sellers, right? Moms or dads that were dropping their kids off or picking their kids up, and on the way back or the way to school, they'll either see my sign, know my name, and know my brand, or they'll see my sign and say, hey, let me stop in. And if they're going to stop in, they care about real estate, right? They have real estate on their mind. They're either thinking about values, maybe they're thinking about buying, or they just want to see, what the homes in their neighborhood look like or what they're going for. So it was absolutely strategic about traffic pattern and location and time. And then I would do drive home time. So, we would do 4 to 6, depending on season and how light it was, 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 during the summer, around certain neighborhoods that we wanted to create market share in because we knew that on their way home, right, they're going back home and they're going to either see our sign or stop in. So that's how we built it. And then there was sort of a business plan overlay of, okay, what price points do we want to be in? And we know that if we're going to attract buyer traffic, which wasn't our goal, but it happens, we know that typically buyers will stop into a home and their price point we found was about $75,000 to $100,000 below typically with the house that they stopped and looked at. So if we want to work with buyers at 300 and above, we would do open houses a minimum of about 400 and above, just because we wanted to set our average price point above 300.
Interesting.
And that's market by market and city by city, but that was what our goal was.
Interesting, Chris. Yeah, I again, so what you said, a couple things. You said, you'd look for homes around the school. You'd look at the morning or afternoon drop off. And, where I live, my wife can literally walk, we can walk to the school. And a lot of people in where I live do. And, all those moms walking their kids to school, it would be, and all those moms walk together. If you did an open house, at that morning drop off time, you had coffee and, maybe you let everybody know, hey, listen, there's warm coffee here. Where all these moms could hang out for 20 minutes chatting about whatever, I gotta think that would be super effective.
Yeah, right. Because even if they're not buying or selling right then, they are going to know your name and know your brand and know, right, and know who you are. And that's mind share, which eventually, when the time comes, is going to lead to business. Whether it's them, whether it's their friends and family. And I would say the only thing that you need to figure out is, now that they're there, or if they stop in, how do you connect with them?
Yeah.
And so in that situation, more casually, that's why if you know they live in the neighborhood, a last name is all you need to connect with them, thank them, and then stay in touch with them on a campaign.
And dude, I think you're a wealth of knowledge, and we're not going to have enough time to cover everything, but or get everything from you. But real quick, tell me this idea. So this is what I tell people about choosing open houses. If you have to borrow one, I say, number one, look at something that's been listed for less than 7 days, less than a week. Number one, so timing. Number two, look at all the properties that, find one that you think is a great deal. In your gut, that thing's going to get sold in another week or two. And that's the one that you want to hold open. And in terms of just choosing, did you looked at traffic patterns. You were very, very strategic about the ones that you held open. Was in terms of being a deal and knowing it's going to move, was that a factor in your choice?
Not always. I mean, for our weekend ones where we wanted a lot of traffic, yes, right? Brand new listings, great neighborhood, right price, definitely. But again, that is, from my point of view, that's buyer focused,
yeah,
right?
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
From the idea of I'm trying to generate buyers, and for me, buyers. What's interesting is my business is almost to within like $3,000, 50-50, 50% buyers and 50% sellers.
Wow.
Yet my focus is always sellers. The buyers show up.
Right.
So for me, it was about what neighborhoods do I want sellers in. And actually, when I thought about that, if I'm sitting in what I think is a phenomenal deal, sellers aren't going to love phenomenal deals in their neighborhood. So not that I'm looking for bad deals, but I don't necessarily want the lowest priced home in the neighborhood, because sellers want agents to protect value.
Right.
And if it wasn't my listing, I wanted to make sure that it was going to represent the seller well, maybe not so much the buyer.
Very interesting, man. All right. In terms of list building, here's what I thought you were going to say. And I'm on your website right now, and this is something that I've looked at thousands of websites, and this is what I'm about to tell you is very much an internet marketing thing that realtors should be using. Here's an example. You go to my site, the first thing you see, I give a book away. I have a 52-page book I wrote, and you give me your name and email address, and I'll let you have the book for free. And in terms of a list building technique, if you had a giveaway, a digital giveaway, a book, how to get the most money for your house, or sell your house in 30 days or less, or whatever it is, and trade an email for the book. I think realtors should start doing that to build a list, and you can do that passively. And I thought for sure, dude, that was going to be part of what a lever, as you call it.
So what's interesting about that is, as we speak, our website's being redesigned. And on there, I've spent the last 3 months basically writing 70 books. And those 70 books are going to be designed. 5 of them are designed for sellers. 1 of them is designed for buyers, and 1 of them is designed for investors.
Yeah.
And it's that strategy. And I think that's where messaging is going, and that's where internet marketing is going, is providing value and then asking something back. And then, right, you can take that, and that could go on. I mean, it's going on our door hangers, it's going on postcards, it's going on internet marketing, Facebook marketing, it's going on our website. And so I agree 100%.
Cool. Yeah. And look, I think, in terms of people, you should really have 3 sites. You should have, your currently you have PDX Property Group. You should have another one, chrissells.com or chrissoldit.com. And that's for the sellers. And then, and because the content that, that messaging for the buyers is very much, I'm going to get you the best deal, best house. The messaging for the sellers, I'm going to get you the most money in the least short. Anyhow, this is not my interview, dude. I'm just excited. I love what you're saying here. So look, let me see what time it is. Okay, we're only 35 minutes in, so we have another 25 minutes with you. You have you've done a lot of speaking around this open house thing. You have a program. I want to talk a little bit about this because I want to know not about the program, but I want to know what it is. So, how to net $1 million in residential real estate. Give us an idea of what that is and what that message is for that.
Yeah. I think mindset's a huge deal. So when I stepped back into production in Portland, I said that I believed anybody could net $1 million in a relatively quick amount of time, following certain business models. And I, like I said, I looked at MREA, the book, and I said, hey, if someone just does this, it's simple, not easy. And yet the book's been around for 12, 13 years, and not too many people have net $1 million in residential real estate. And so my goal was to prove that, hey, with some focus and some business sense, it can be done. And it can actually be a model for anyone to follow. So when I stepped back into production, I was coaching here at my office, was a business development coach for about 18 months, 2 years, and really coached agents, right, about 100 agents at the time. And I stepped back into production and said, listen, I'm going to open up my door. Anybody can ask me any question, can use anything I use, can do what I do. And my goal is to prove that I can net $1 million in about 5 years. Well, it was 3 years in that we net $1 million. And so once we did that, that's when I said, this has to be easier than even a book. So that's where we built just a quick course. It's 12 weeks, and the title of it is Model Your Way to $1 Million. And it's just step by step what I did to grow a residential real estate business, lead gen lever by lead gen lever, building out economic model, knowing what a budget is, how do you run a P&L, and then how do you build a team, right? How do you build your organization?
So
it's really those 4 things.
Okay. So now, so you're at 85 million, on track for 100. Each of your channels are going to yield you 20 million top line. So what are your other 2 legs that you've built out?
So our lead gen now is we continue to do open houses. Everybody on our team has to commit to doing 50 open houses a year.
Wow.
So it's a schedule for sure. But it obviously brings results for us. So we do open houses. Our database now for past clients referrals is huge. And in fact, that'll be the number 1 portion of our business for the first time this year in 2014. So we have a campaign and system and flow for past clients, which is interesting because, we're 4 years in. So that's one leg. Past clients is a leg. We started radio. So that was a leg that we added in about 1.5 years ago. So we're building that to get to the 20 million. So that was our last leg added.
Hold on. Let's talk about that, because part of our platform is we do that. So we put people on the radio now. In your market, there's a guy named Shivers, which I don't need to say his whole name. He's on radio. I think last year he did 300 and something. We're actually looking to fill Portland. So it sounds like you did radio on your own.
I did.
Wow.
Yep, messaging and everything. And it's a process for sure. But we'll by probably in about 3 or 4 months we'll be tracking to hit 20 million from that lead gen source as well.
And hold on. And how long have you been doing radio?
1.5 years.
1.5 years. Wow, that's great, especially for a Portland. So 1.5 years, that's going to be $20 million. That's going to represent about 30% of your business. I won't ask you about budget, although I know what budget that should be. How many stations are you on?
Just one.
And so your AM drive.
We're FM Drive.
Morning drive. I mean, AM morning.
Right. Oh, got it. Yeah.
So
morning drive.
So morning drive. So 7A to 9A time slot. 6 to 10.
We start at 6:30. So 6:30 through 9:30.
And what's your offer? Help me understand your offer.
We do a 90-day guarantee.
Yep.
Which is interesting because we've only worked on that with that program twice in everybody that listens. I mean, we've built a relationship with someone that has influence, and we believe that it's almost a radio strategy, almost a referral strategy.
Yeah.
All of our messaging is someone referring us.
Right.
And that's been a strong base for us. But what's interesting about that is, I know that a lot of people will jump into radio as their source, and it's and want immediate results. For us, we didn't add that in until we were doing 70 million, right? So we hit 70 million and said, okay, great, let's now add in radio, and that was the way for me to budget properly, because I care about budget, and I'm a huge proponent of net, right? The whole point of my course is how do you net $1 million, and I think there's a lot of agents out there doing a ton of volume, and their net is really low, and they don't make a whole lot more money than the agent with one assistant that's doing 350 in GCI. So I think that you need to be careful with that, but done right, it's a phenomenal path.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I mean, it sounds like, look, so your 3 legs, you got open houses. That's time. Costs virtually nothing. Your next is you're very good at your past clients, and that doesn't cost very much to do that. Again, that's time. And the only thing you're really spending money on is radio, and that's why you're doing 2 million GCI with 9 people. Dude, you have built a phenomenal business. I love it. Look, unfortunately, we got to start wrapping up. But look, I'm going to ask you a question. I just want you to take this wherever you want, because again, you're a pretty interesting guy, and it's a crazy question. So here's the question, Chris: is what's something I didn't ask you, or something we didn't talk about that I should have asked you, or you feel like we should talk about?
Schedule.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes you can hear numbers and you can hear all these things moving, and you think, well, I'm going to give away my life in order to build that. I will say I got here because as an agent, I didn't have a life, right? So I go back 7-8 years, and when I was moving from Eugene to Portland, I stepped out of the business for a couple months. I was done. I had been married for about a year. That first year was it was just too much work to maintain a business that was a phenomenal business from the outside. And I think a lot of people judge there's an expression that we use in our company that, don't judge your insides by other people's outsides. And so from the outside looking in, it looked like I had an awesome business, but it was a mess inside, right? It was just me. I was running all the time. I got to hate the industry. And I was just like, I'm done with the industry. So I moved to Portland. I say, hey, I'm not going to sell real estate. I actually go and get a job as a commodities broker, true story.
Wow.
And that was going to be any better.
Right.
And
it's worse.
And about a couple months in, I thought, what am I doing? Man, I know real estate. I just need to run it like a business, and I need to take ownership of my schedule. And so this year, what's interesting is I've worked less hours than I've ever worked in my life. And it's because I've committed to a schedule. Now, I live a really, really scheduled life. I mean, my life is scheduled, but it's that schedule that has made it super, super purposeful. This summer I was out of the country. I spent 6 weeks in Costa Rica with my family, completely disconnected from the U.S. And you think, well, I never thought that was possible running a real estate business, but I'll tell you that's the first time you have a real business, because it can run without you there. And whether it runs at the same level, or from my perspective, if my business dropped 30% and I wasn't here, that's still a win.
Yeah.
My goal was to build it so it doesn't, and it didn't. But I think that for me, I think real estate agents need to get really clear about about treating themselves and treating their clients and treating their business like other professionals do, right? Like attorneys do, like doctors do, even insurance agents, right? They typically run better businesses, and they are actually building something for the future way better than real estate agents do. So I think that it's important for people to hear that you can have a big business and you can actually build it the right way such that it protects your personal time and your space and your appointments with yourself and your appointments with the people that matter to you, whether it's family or friends or whatever, or hobbies or sports, whatever it is, and not give that up to chase a deal. And I think that's important, and if you set it up the right way, it can be done. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. 100% agree, man. I mean, your doctor is not going to take a phone call from you at 8 at night, right? I mean, I think if, and look, and for me, what you just said, Chris, the way you keep saying business, and that's fine, and a lot of people, equate that, but there's a difference between a company and a business. A company is what you have. You have a company. There's systems, there's processes, there's staff. Everybody knows it. You can walk away for 6 weeks, go to Europe, hike Mont Blanc, ski in Chamonix, and come back, and everything's the same. Whereas for me, again, the way I term it, when you have a business, you have to be there. So, yep. I like that. I like that a lot. Well, I love you spreading that message. Okay, well, listen, we're going to wrap up with the same last two questions I ask everybody, and the first is a book recommendation. And I don't know. You're not a KW. Oh, you are a KW person. Yep. So you cannot. This book, you cannot say any Gary stuff. I get it. Every KW person comes on. It's like, and look, and you are a guy. I'm very curious because you're a guy who reads a business book every month. So here's a setup, Chris. I am an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy today? One, huh? Yeah, well, you can give me two because I know you're a really well-read guy. Okay, so the first thing I'll say is reading The Millionaire Messenger by Brendan Burchard, and it's probably an interesting choice because it borders on self-development and business. But I believe in this industry we're messengers and we're experts, and his message is how do you become an expert in your space and make money becoming an expert in your space, which clearly you've done an amazing job at. So The Millionaire Messenger is for me a huge read. The other one I would say that has been huge for me is actually Brian Tracy's Focal Point. And just getting really clear about what it is we do and why we do it. But Focal Point has been a big one for me as well. I love that. And listen, for everybody out in the audience, if you haven't read either one of those books, and you don't know who Brendan Burchard, I mean, look, I'm sure you know Brendan's whole deal, but that guy came out of nowhere not too long ago. Got hooked up with Jeff Walker, and all of a sudden, Brendan is like. And I don't know if have you heard Brendan speak? He's not that. He's a weird speaker, but So it's interesting. So Brendan's a client of mine, actually. Really? Yeah. So he lives in Portland. He's a client of mine, a good friend, and honestly now, I've gone to a couple of his events, Experts Academy, and now if you go and listen to him, as opposed to even a few years ago, incredible. Like really, it just has crafted it. Huh. But just a brilliant messenger. Right, and understand, and I think that is completely transferable into the real estate industry. Absolutely. I mean, I came back and said, okay, what messages are we putting out to sellers and buyers? Like, how do we create those, and how do we make them better? I think coupling him and Simon Sinek with starting with why and going from the inner circle to the outer circle, which is a whole nother process. But yeah, huge fan of Brendan. Yeah, and listen, for everybody in the audience, if you haven't read Brendan Burchard's Millionaire Messenger, and I haven't, and look, you know what? I just Googled it. Looks like you can get a free PDF. But if you want the book, or Simon Sinek's, the Start With Why, Google that guy and let's see his TED Talk. You can get a free copy. Just use our link. Just use audibletrial.com/superagentslive. Get a free copy of any of these books. Now, my last question for you, and I am very interested in this because you talked about, making sure that you control your time these days. But so here it is. Chris,
do you have a personal habit that you feel has contributed to your very early success?
Yep. And it's morning routine. It's waking up at the same time every single morning and following a routine, which I'm an early riser, and not everybody is, but for me, it's been a huge contributor to my success, and I get some sort of exercise, and honestly, I'm the guy that can go up and down with that and be all about it and not, and it hasn't been until recently that I thought to myself, man, I spend a lot of money on a business coach, which is great for my business or company, but I'm not spending money on a health coach or a trainer. And so I immediately said, well, what's more important, my body and my health or my business? And for me, it was my body and my health. And so now having accountability in that world for me has been like my business has grown as I've gotten more focused on my health.
So Tony Robbins talks about this a little bit, and he has some very high level personal people that he coaches, and all of them, the first thing he tells them is, hey, you can't control your business unless you have control over your body, right? And like go out and get in shape, and that's the first thing you do. And it's amazing to hear you say that, Chris, that once you started doing this, your business improved. So. Geez, man. Listen, I think this is, for me, I've really enjoyed my time with you, and I wish you nothing but continued success. I definitely want to keep in touch with you, and here's what I ask my audience to do. If they've gotten anything out of this episode, anything from your message, oh, man, I'm late for my next call. Tell us where we can find you so they can reach out and say thanks.
You can, my email, it's easy, it's Chris at pdxpropertygroup.com. PDX is Portland Airport, so Chris at pdxpropertygroup.com. Or obviously I'm on Facebook. Just look Chris Suarez up, Suarez.
And for everybody, man, listen, all this stuff, all Chris's tactics on open house, all this stuff, we'll have phenomenal show notes on our website, superagentslive.com. Just look for Chris's name, and it will all be there. Chris, I'll be the first guy to reach out and say thank you, buddy. I know you're a super busy guy. You live out of your calendar. I appreciate you carving time out for us.
Awesome, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Yep, bye.
Let's go. Yeah.